Okay, I could not figure out how to fix my webcam to go to my screen because I wanted to look at our actual document where we collected evidence. So what I was saying was we had gone through step one, gathered all the evidence, and we analyzed the evidence in order to make our claim. So before we left, God, it was a week ago, over a week ago, we had broken down all of the evidence into the four main color signatures and all of the compounds that were listed under each. And you either chose to write their names out or you did their chemical compounds or you did both. Here I chose to do both just so it was a little bit more obvious what their chemical formulas look like and where you would find them in the formula. We analyzed our evidence in class, and in class, ideally, you would have come up with these basic statements and hopefully wrote them down. Step two here on your sheets are where I found some of the information really lacking, not as descriptive as it really should have been. So I wanted to make sure just to go over this. These are evidence statements or analysis of our evidence that I would have written. So that strontium emits red light, sodium emits orange light, copper emits green light, and potassium emits violet light. Those are what we saw based on our collection of data. You would notice then looking at all the compounds that it's the first element in a compound that determines the color of the flame. And for each compound, it did not matter if it was a chloride, a nitrate, or a sulfate. All of the compounds burn the same color. The first element in each compound is a metal. Strontium is an alkaline earth metal if you're looking at its group in the periodic table. Sodium and potassium are alkali metals, that very first group in the periodic table, and copper is part of that middle section on the largest portion of your periodic table and is a transition metal. So these evidence analysis statements really help us go back to the original question and help us think about the evidence that we've gathered and how it's going to answer that original question, okay? Which is, again, what type of element can a flame test be used to identify? You have to keep that original question in your head while you're going through all of this, okay? So from step two in class, we moved on to step three, which was to make your claim. And again, you were focusing on answering the original question. What type of element can a flame test be used to identify? And it's a simple statement, okay? And it goes back to the type of element. So we're thinking about the main category of elements. So is it a metal, a non-metal, a metalloid? So we could say, really simple, flame tests can be used to identify a metal element in a compound. Now, if you did some of your research, some of you might have changed the word element to ion, and that is completely acceptable. It's actually a little bit more correct based on the type of compounds we were looking at. However, we're looking at the type of element here, and the metal is really what we're focusing on here. It's a metal element or a metal ion. Both are completely fine. Step four, which is our justification. Okay, here is where you don't want to just repeat the evidence. You want to explain how or why it supports your claim. Why or how are we supporting the fact that metal elements were recognized during the flame test? Okay, so I wrote just two justification statements here that would help support the claim based on our evidence and the analysis of it. So I just said, you know, because all of the compounds that contain strontium burned red, sodium burned orange, copper burned green, and potassium burned, oh, that should say violet. Always reread your work out loud to yourself. You'll find all your mistakes. Burned violet. I know it is the first element in the compound that produced the color of light during the flame test. That is a justification that answers or supports the claim saying that a metal element is what is identified. I also went back to their placement on the periodic table. It's because of where they're placed on the periodic table that I know these elements are metal and that I can use a flame test to identify the metal element, okay, in a compound, but not the compound itself. That's kind of a key piece here, something that you might have come up with as you were looking at your evidence, like, yes, I can determine if something burned green that it might have copper in it, but I wouldn't know if it was copper chloride, copper sulfate, copper nitrate. Okay, I might have to do more evidence gathering on that. It might lead to a whole nother experiment if you were trying to identify a specific substance. At least the flame test can help narrow it down. All right. Step 5 here, you guys should have done, it was just for you to do some background information research to help you answer and come up with a claim and do a little bit of justification. So what I noticed with a lot of the work that was done here, you have very short, incomplete answers. Some of the information is just wrong. When you do your background research, you want to take the time to search multiple sources. You want to take the time to answer these questions with the most amount of information, not yes and no answers, you got to take the time to really do the research. I felt like quite a few of you probably read the first sentence in a paragraph and that was good enough for you, and you didn't read enough into it in order to answer these properly. So I didn't go through and answer all of these for you because there's a ton of information out there, and all of these could very well be answered if you take the time to read through your sources and not just, go to Google Ask or Wikipedia, or if you do find a good resource, read through the whole piece, okay? So hopefully this is enough of a little bit of background and a little bit of help to get you to put your thoughts together in order to complete the next assignment, which is 009. And so it was part 2, which is writing your scientific argument. It gives you the same developing step-by-step process up here. And if you notice in the box here where it gives you the graphic, step 1 was to gather evidence, but it's listed as A3. And so this particular organizer has you writing your argument from A1, which is your claim, to A2, which is explaining any background concepts and evaluating evidence, justification here, to 3, which was your evidence. So what is it specifically to 4, which are those justification statements. So I tried to give you an organizer to help you put all of those pieces together, right? So when you're doing this, you should start with, your claim, some background knowledge here in A2. You could go back to your research points and go back to why was color emitted, what is happening in the atom during that particular time. You could be, describing why we're seeing color emissions. So go back to that background research and fill those pieces in here. In terms of using any vocabulary words, if you're using really in-depth vocabulary that you feel you yourself may not understand, you should be explaining how it's relevant, explain what it is so that somebody reading this has the feeling that you know what you're talking about, okay? Evidence, this is complete sentences. Something I think we all struggle with is writing nice complete sentences that looks at what you gathered in your data table. And then part 4 is those justification statements, and they give you the same sort of setup that I wrote mine in. Because of this particular piece of evidence, I know that this is how it backs up my claim. Anyway, I hope this is helps you out a little bit. If you were struggling at all, I hope that between now and Thursday you can finish this particular assignment, right? The whole point of setting up each of these A1, A2, A3, A4, would be that if you were to remove all of those, you would have a short essay all written, an argumentative piece to support your claim to the question about what type of element can the flame test be used to identify. Okay, so if you have any other further issues, concerns, or worries, please message me individually and we can talk about it. I hope you guys have a great day today. I know you're home. It's SAT day here, so hopefully you will take the time to work through this, watch my videos, and complete this assignment. All right. Have a great day, guys.